MMA Buzz.
Hello and welcome to MMA Buzz, the East Coast MMA chat, where three friends get together for some beers and talk about MMA, upcoming cards, and industry news. We're coming to you pre-recorded from our Fredericton, New Brunswick studio. I am your host, Rodney Mann. That's Rodney Mann on Instagram. Joining me today, to my left,
it's Trevor Grever Lutz, Grever on Instagram.
And rounding out the panel today,
Nick Brown, NHBrown44 on Instagram and Twitter.
Collectively, we are MMA Buzz Radio. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube just by searching MMA Buzz Radio. Like it, follow us, let us know how we're doing and what you think of the show so far. This is a big episode. We're super excited. It is episode 10 of MMA Buzz.
Peace.
We're sticking to it. We're happy you guys are tuning in. Having a lot of fun with this. It's a small milestone, but we're still pretty stoked to be celebrating it today. If you are new to MMA Buzz, we always start off the show talking about what kind of craft beers we're drinking while we're going to be discussing MMA throughout the show. I'll start us off. I've got a Red Racer IPA coming all the way from BC. It is a strong ale. It's an IPA. It's got a lovely lady riding an old-style bicycle on the front, and it's definitely one of my favorites. It's coming out of Surrey, BC, all the way across this beautiful country of ours, Canada. Nick, what do you have today?
I'm drinking a Ransack the Universe Hemisphere IPA from Collective Arts Brewing in Hamilton, Ontario. Great beer. It lasted about 4 days in the stores in Fredericton.
Sold out.
Yeah, sold out. There's a whole bunch of different art on the cans. And it's made with hops from Australia and Washington, and it's one of the best IPAs I've ever had.
Yeah, what is that coming from Australia? The Galaxy hops?
Galaxy is from Australia and Mosaic hops from Washington.
Yeah, I think I might have had a Mosaic hop before on a West Coast IPA, but I've definitely never had a Galaxy hop all the way from Australia.
Hopbot, which is usually one of my go-tos, it has like 5 kinds of hops in it, but one of them is Mosaic.
Ah, yes. That makes sense.
I had one of those the other day from Nick, and it's probably one of the best beers I've had in a long time.
Yeah, I was really kicking myself in the ass for not picking up many when I walked into the liquor store and saw that they were for sale. I knew it. I knew that was probably going to be a small batch order, but at $4 a pop, it's...
Unfortunately, this is my last one.
Yeah, I can't thank you enough for letting me buy one off of you when I realized my error and not purchasing many at once.
Give me some of that.
Yeah, what are you drinking, Trev? What do you got today?
All right, I got Fredericton's own Maybe Brew Co. Workhorse IPA. This is a beer that's been shown on this podcast many times, and I'm actually looking forward to meeting this brewing company next weekend at the beer festival here. It's the hardworking American IPA with you for the long haul, and it's definitely one of the best beers I've had in a long time, on top of the Collective Arts that Nick has. And it's a go-to of mine lately.
Yeah, I really like it too. It's kind of winning me over. At first I thought it was a little bit mellow for my taste for an IPA, but it's a good first beer if you're going to be having a night of drinking and you want to start off in the IPA realm but a little lighter than usual. I got to say that Collective Arts one, though, is a good way to start or finish the night. It's definitely an awesome IPA.
The citrus blast you get with every drink is perfect.
Every Collective Arts beer that we've had come through Fredericton was just great.
Yeah, I actually have one of their stouts in my fridge right now. I'm going to be enjoying that perhaps later with a movie or something. It's definitely a dessert beer. Yeah.
It's heavy.
No shortage of beers. Did you want to mention the Saison you were also drinking?
Well, I was going to get to that later, but I've got a Saison de Pinacle as well that I've been working on while we were getting ready for the podcast. Coming out of Brasserie Dunham in Dunham, Quebec. I wasn't sure about it on first sip, but after a couple sips, it's pretty good. It's got a fairly strong taste of orange peel.
Yeah, I didn't realize Saison was the type of beer. It was in the name, Saison de Pinacle, but it's I guess there's a type of beer that is called Saison. News to me today, but you learn something new every day. So it was actually pretty decent. I agree. The first taste was a little bit offensive, but really kind of grows on you the more you have a couple sips of it. I have a tiny kid's juice glass here with a little bit in it. All right, guys, we got a lot to talk about in the world of MMA, so let's get to it. The last weekend of fights, I know I'm still reeling from last night alone. UFC
shock.
196, Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. Nate coming in as the late replacement again for Rafael dos Anjos, who broke his foot 2 weeks out, I guess 11 days. If you haven't seen the fight, spoiler alert, shell-shocked, man. Yeah, I just don't...
word.
Yeah, that was... We saw it going that way. If you actually listened to the podcast last week, we called Nate with the submission in the second round, so cheers to that for our... Well, no, Nick didn't, so we'll cheers while Nick stays out of the cheersing lane.
Mm-hmm.
Had to be the odd man out.
Hey, that's fine. But yeah, we didn't bet money on it, so we're not really that big of winners. We should have. We're going to be kicking ourselves in the ass for some time.
We were pretty sad talking about it about a half hour ago.
Yeah. But anyways, enough about us. Let's jump right into the fight. McGregor coming into this fight, 19-2, looking like a boss, moving up and down at will in his weight classes, taking this fight at 170 despite holding the championship at 145. Nate Diaz, of course, said he was open to fight at 165, but they landed at 170. No take backsies. Of course, you know by now. Diaz, 11 days notice, impressing the world. Going in, Diaz, probably his biggest opportunity, despite having almost 30 fights, professional fights in MMA. Conor coming off of a 13-second knockout of Jose Aldo. Diaz looking really good in his last fight against Michael Johnson, going to an impressive decision where he just picked Johnson apart.
And taunted.
Yeah, and speaking of taunts, the pre-fight madness that existed and that fermented within those 11 days, just insanity. That really got me excited to watch, and really I was kind of more excited to watch anyways. I was stoked on Dos Anjos versus Conor in the first place, but I really thought the money fight, Nate Diaz and Conor.
Yep.
What did you guys think of the pre-fight antics? Did that tickle your fancy, fellas?
It lived up to what I expected from Diaz and McGregor. I mean, I was almost as excited for what was going to happen pre-fight as the actual fight once they made the announcement.
Same.
And it lived up to what I expected.
Yeah, the interesting part about that is we only got 11 days of that, and I'm kind of happy that was the case because they really crammed it in there and they really made it work. And if we would have had the same kind of world tour with Diaz, I'm not sure it would have been able to keep the steam up, But there's only so many FUs you can toss out before it sounds old.
Yeah.
But these guys are really going at each other through the throat and or going to each other's throats. It was there was a no holds barred contest in the war of words moving up into the fight, and a lot put on the movement. On the other opposite end of Conor's spectrum, great with words, great with movement. Coming into this fight and in the first round, I guess Conor showing great movement, lots of angles from both these men. Diaz, his classic style, shifting his shoulders and moving his head.
Boxing,
heavy on his front foot, but making really good movement. Conor looking very much like Conor looks, dipping and diving. I actually was telling Nick he looks a lot like Brendan Brewer, who is the Canadian lightweight champion right now. He's fighting out of Fredericton Boxing Club. He's got amazing movement, really reminiscent of him, and it was just the ducking and the diving around while throwing the punches. They traded quite a bit. Although Conor was really looking for that uppercut, he did cut Diaz open with a left hook, I believe, and the first round actually ends with Conor on top. Really unexpected, I suppose. Just the fact that Diaz, I guess, is feels safe fighting off of his back, that he didn't really feel like fighting off of. If he was taken down, it wasn't the end of the world, and there really wasn't enough time in the round to make anything of his position. So they go into the second round, and Diaz, I feel, really found his range in that round. They trade blows, but Diaz is really quick with that 1-2, the jab straight. He gets several in a row, and they rock Conor. Conor's finding his range as well, landing a few counter shots, getting a few hooks in, while Diaz is really just picking him apart with those 1-2s. Of course, finally, you can see one that really lands, and Conor's face, just the confidence that usually usually radiates out of his smile, and his eyes just completely gone. You can tell that he was rocked. People are saying he gassed, but you can tell he was definitely hurt.
Yeah, his legs were unwobbly.
Yeah, and I think Diaz summed it up best. They're all strikers until they get punched, and then all of a sudden they're shooting. Everybody thinks they're a wrestler, which is exactly what happened to Conor. Obviously not known for his ground game, going for that shoot, going for the takedown. Diaz not having any of it, and literally just outworks his opponent on the ground. Gets that, gives him a little bit of ground and pound. Conor shows his back to Diaz, and Diaz wastes no time cinching in that arm and getting the rear naked choke. Guys, that is the summation of the fight. And I can't believe I got it out so quickly, because I feel like I was like that just suspended in time for me. That fight only going 2 rounds, but really felt like an eternity, just with the anticipation and everything. At any time, anything could happen. These two men really bringing it. Trevor, why don't you let me know what you think?
Yeah, it was great. In the first round, you notice, Diaz actually takes some really hard shots, and the Diaz brothers have always been known for their hard chins, granite chins, great cardio, and he took them. He was even bloodied up. You could see a sign that maybe Conor was feeling that I'm hitting this guy a lot, and it's not hurting him. Kind of something you can kind of catch at the first, which is I caught after rewatching the fight. At first, I'm like, oh, he's picking him apart hard. He was picking him apart, but in the sense that Diaz was still bringing it, still trying to go forward. The second round, oh my god, like my heart rate was just up the roof when he hit him with a right cross, straight left. That was 0.5 seconds, like
it was so fast,
quick, and you see McGregor's legs kind of go and his jaw clench. Yeah, and like Rodney was saying, his basically looks like his soul disappeared. And one of the things I caught, you can actually hear McGregor grunt really loud, is when he's taking a pounding on the corner, on the corner, but against the cage. Diaz hits him in the stomach or in the liver area with a knee, and you hear McGregor grunt really loud, and that right there sucks the soul right out of you to begin with. Also, great work on the ground. He actually had some really nice ground and pound shots before the rear naked choke. Also, something I really liked is, a lot of people go for the rear naked choke, they just go for it, but Diaz was softening him up with punches while sneaking in. He hit him with a hard on the left, and then that's when Conor actually tried to defend, because he thought he was going to keep getting punched, but put in that rear naked choke. Amazing performance, especially on that 11-day notice. People made fun of online about him being triathlon because they showed pictures of older people. Oh, there's like look, old people do triathlons, blah blah blah. Like, just shows Diaz is a real fighter. And I've always been a fan of the guys, but that even made me a bigger fan last night.
I agree.
And you know what? They showed respect afterwards. It was nice, True martial arts style right there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely appreciate the sportsmanship between the two. It was... I think Diaz really owned his time on the microphone post-fight.
Oh, yes.
Really laid his claim. And
was correct with everything he said, too.
He was, yeah. Only a few F-bombs. And, Diaz...
Motherfuckers.
Yeah. And Conor, of course, very gracious in defeat. Before we talk about what this fight means, Nick, I want to get your input. Who tapped faster, Conor or Sage Northcutt?
I think Sage might have been a little faster, and
wisdom teeth hurt me.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but Nick, I also want to get your take on sort of the weight that this win/loss had for either man. You could look at this fight and say it's inconsequential. There was no title on the line. They were meeting at a different weight class for either man, but you could also say this is game changing. Conor literally had the pick of whoever he wanted to fight. He was navigating the ship, steering the ship as you would, and just really at the helm of the hype train. But after a loss to Diaz, does that fall off? Does the hype train go off the tracks?
I think as soon as Conor tapped, I yelled the hype train just went off the tracks.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Whoops.
Pretty sure, yeah.
But
I was screaming.
Yeah,
but I think I saw your mouth move that.
I don't think it makes too much difference for Conor as long as he goes back to 145 and looks great defending his belt.
Yeah.
This fight will be forgotten about after a couple more fights.
Yeah.
But this is big for Diaz.
Is he the new superstar? Does he basically take over where Conor leaves off?
I don't think he really takes over where Conor leaves off, but I imagine there's a lineup of guys waiting to get a fight with him right now.
Yeah, maybe he is the real money fight, you know?
Yeah.
There was a lot of people tuning in for this.
And, just, Trevor, you were saying that you were watching Conor throw his shots, and it seemed like you could tell that he was kind of worried that his shots weren't like knocking Diaz out. He actually mentioned that in the post-fight press conference too. He's like, I wasn't prepared to fight a bigger man like that. I didn't know he was going to be able to take those kind of shots. Yeah. And he never mentioned how much it sucked getting punched by a bigger man. But
well, they do say the Diaz brothers is sort of death by a million paper cuts, you know.
Oh,
so
yeah.
He could have been much worse if he was fighting somebody with a lot higher, like, bigger strength in that same weight class. So he's kind of lucky he did have Nate in that
yeah, there's some big guys at 170.
Yeah.
There's something I really wanted to say about this fight is that I'm not sure what episode it was that we talked about this, but we talked about how Nate had called out McGregor after his Michael Johnson win, and how excited we were that actually that fight could happen.
Yeah.
So, here we are now, episode 10.
And that's exactly why that fight happened. So.
Yeah, man, it definitely lived up to the hype, for sure. Of course, Conor living out the worst case scenario thoughts in any champion's head when they're thinking about moving up. You know, Conor looking to pull a BJ. He is unsuccessful. He did not win, and therefore, you know, maybe he just does stay at 145, and of course he's got a lot of weight to shed just to get back to defending his title, just the fact that he's been walking around so heavy, anticipating that fight against Dos Anjos. If he does that, do you think it's a one-and-done defense, or do you think the Dos Anjos fight is out the window, missed opportunity for Dos Anjos, Trevor?
I think it could still happen, maybe with one fight each before that.
Yeah.
McGregor fights somebody, also maybe Edgar, and maybe Dos Anjos can fight another contender. There's Eddie Alvarez possibly in there, so
yeah.
But there's always a chance of it happening still, just not at 200 or maybe November at the latest.
Yeah, true. Yeah, 200 up in the air for sure after this night's results. What do you think about Diaz in the title picture, Nick? Do you think this win puts Diaz closer to a title despite not actually fighting, you know, a contender?
I don't think so. You still gotta fight the title contenders in your own weight division if you want a title shot.
Well, he did beat in his prime now Michael Johnson.
Yeah, true.
Michael Johnson's looked better than ever now.
Yeah, I mean that he really did take this on short notice, and that little cut, I mean, the Diaz brothers' faces are entirely scar tissue, so I'm sure he's not really going to get much of a suspension. He might himself be able to be the big money fight at 200 now.
I don't know, he's definitely in title contention, but maybe one more fight before he gets a title shot. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting.
200's really up in the air, and even Dana said that they weren't trying to make any plans for 200 until they found out how last night went.
Yeah, that's a smart business move. Speaking of title fights, the co-main event actually was a title fight. We had Miesha Tate challenging Holm. Holm, of course, coming off of the biggest upset in UFC history, where she defeated Ronda Rousey with that amazing head kick and follow up with hammer fists. I believe it was in Australia.
Fatality.
Yeah, and and Tate also riding a 4-fight win streak coming into this. Their shared opponent being Ronda Rousey. Coming into this, Holm's coaches were saying that they didn't show their full hand in previous MMA fights, and they really pulled it out during the Ronda fight to throw them off. And if you watched her first couple of fights in the UFC, they did go the distance. They were very uninspiring. Definitely not what we were seeing in the Ronda Rousey fight, and definitely not what we saw in the fight against Tate. I think Holly won the first. Personally, there was a lot of I think Tate took too long to find her range and was really looking to stand up with her. But of course, Holm, more comfortable on the feet, found her range sooner, and sort of made Tate pay for going for some of the engagements that she went for in the first. But Tate really found her range in the second and really brought it back by out wrestling Holm. I think we were throwing around a 10-8 round score in round 2 because she just out wrestled and outclassed her opponent. They were even alluding to the fact that Holm clearly didn't train enough wrestling. They were saying there's gaps in her game.
Complete domination in the second round,
Yeah, absolutely. And you could see the toll that the second round had on both ladies going into the third and the fourth. They were really conserving their energy. Probably the smartest move, because in the fifth it was definitely anyone's fight to win. Personally, I thought it was really tight, but we all know how it went down. Tate going for the takedown. She had missed a few takedowns earlier in the round, so this was a rather unorthodox takedown where she sort of went off to the side, grabbed her hips and twisted her down. Yeah, it was sort of like one of those takedowns at any cost, and it wasn't beautiful, but it worked, and it got Holm defending, and Tate of course spun around, got her back, got the rear naked choke on her, and Holm tried to shake her off, or sort of reverse pile driver her head into the ground. But man, when Tate was holding on to her neck there, she had her eyes just clenched, and she was putting everything she had into that rear naked choke, and I'm not sure she even realized she was about to get dumped by Holm, and then all of a sudden it's happening. She didn't open her eyes or anything. She just got her eyes closed the entire time, just focused on cinching that arm underneath that chin and just choking and choking and choking, and my God, she choked Holm out completely. Holm trying to pat at the air, looking like she's trying to punch someone, like the ref or something. That might have been her trying to tap just as she was on her way out, showing real class as a champion. Not tapping. She went out on her sword. Of course, Tate realizing her dream. Before the fight, obviously, before the Holm-Rousey fight, Tate was guaranteed the title fight against Rousey, and then they took it from her just like that and gave it to Holm. Holm, of course, winning. Tate coming in with an amazing game plan, knew she had to win. Her corner telling her, being brutally honest with her, telling her she needed to win in the fifth, and she went out and got it. Guys, just an amazing fight. The third and the fourth a little bit slow, but pretty much all worth it for the fifth. Nick, why don't you jump in on this fight?
Yeah, it was a crazy fight the whole way through. I mean, third and fourth weren't quite as exciting, but was another one of those moments where everyone just screamed at the end of it.
Yeah.
And Holly Holm let her guard down. And, she got punished for it.
She certainly did.
Lost her O.
She lost, she loses her O, and Miesha Tate scores the fourth latest submission win in title championship bouts in UFC history. Very impressive. Trevor, what's your take on this? What did you think of the fight?
Oh, I thought it was great. Third and fourth was slow, like you guys said, but I feel like it was almost like Holm was doing her style prior to Rousey, more of safe. Mm-hmm. Maybe, she thought she had it in the bag, 1, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Have 3 of, But then there's the fifth. It really showed Tate really wanted it. She has that real, champion mentality. Just like he said, late stoppages, not late stoppages, but later in the rounds, she has that desperation. She knows, just like Robbie Lawler, got to do this type deal. And that makes real champions.
Yeah, for sure.
And just the way you're describing the look on her face, like she wanted it so bad. It was so emotional afterwards too. It was really, really a great moment. And
I was moved, honestly. I thought I was going to cry. It was so moving, though. She broke down in the middle of the octagon, and she herself was shedding tears of joy and, probably just overwhelmed with emotion. Of course, Holly Holm completely out, on the ground.
Face first,
they wouldn't let Tate close to her. Just what's next for Tate, do you think? Who does she... They just announced that Tate's going to be fighting Rousey, right?
Yes.
So we have that fight to look forward to for Tate, and Holm, a one and done champion, clearly not getting the rematch. They want to see Tate and Rousey. What do you do? What do you do with
it? Shows
Holm?
MMA math does not work.
Yeah,
that's for one.
Yeah, she kind of did have a pretty easy run to the title, so maybe she'll fight like a Kat Zingano or, some other top 5 fighter, keep her name in the mix
Nunes,
if she can win.
Maybe.
Yeah, Nunes just
won.
Yeah, she just came off of a win. She's top 5.
Let's see, Holm. Probably Nunes, I'm feeling. Shows if Holm wins, then she can go fight for the title again, and if Nunes wins, she can go fight for the title between the winner of Rousey and Tate.
Definitely would be the biggest fight of Nunes' career.
Yes, for sure is.
guys, that was what capped off the evening. Those two amazing fights, which took us 25 minutes to discuss.
Oh. I was sweaty by the end of it.
I'm surprised we were able to condense it into 20 minutes because, those fights were very emotional for me. Really regretting not putting any money down. But hey, those are the breaks. After I took such a washing on the previous card, I thought I might take a break. This was not the card to take a break on. The card overall, really impressive matchmaking by Joe Silva and the team. It was just such back-to-back bangers. Even the fights that went to a decision were all really impressive fights. I know there's quite a few fights that we could talk about, but Grev, why don't you give me some of your top fights from the card going down?
So, most of these are from the prelims. The Latifi, Vellante, then there was the
Lawler Anderson.
Yes,
yeah,
Easton 25-8, Lawler. Yeah, it was kind of slower. Not going to really talk about those ones. They were merely alright, and I'll probably never watch them again. But in the prelims, we got to sit here after not 200. It was a 2-year-long layoff. This is a fighter that I've been watching for years, since his fights in Sengoku in Japan, fighting out of Afghanistan. Well, no, he's born in Afghanistan, but he took on Thatch. Really showed he could take Thatch's shots.
Brandon Thatch,
yeah. He could show, he got rocked a couple times, but he took Thatch's shots and came out and won in the third round with a arm triangle. It's nice to see him back. It was actually a really good fight. Thatch, I don't know what they're going to do with him. He's on I believe it's a 3-fight skid, possibly.
Yeah. Just fighting a lot of tough competition. Probably underestimated his opponent in this fight.
Yeah, well, the thing is that they showed that he's shown that after the first round he's kind of dwindles. He finished all those fights so fast before.
Well, they were commenting on his lack of ground game. Amazing striker, but just didn't have that rounded out game that can really bring the win home, especially when he's on his back, which I think people have figured out by now.
Yes, really showed the blueprint in the Benson Henderson and Gunner. There's another fight here I got to. It was a crazy KO. There was Nadine Taleb fighting out of Montreal, Quebec.
Woo, TriStar!
Yeah, Canada.
Hello.
Let's see. So
probably the craziest part about that fight was when they showed the replay of after the kick to the knee, and then they showed Taleb trying to get his balance, and his ankle is weary. He can't really find his balance, and
yeah, it looks
weird. It's like his leg malfunction, like a UFC video game.
Yeah. EA UFC 1, yeah. So this fight was really weird. Silva came out really aggressive like he always does. Gets taken down and hit in the face. Comes up and you can see he's pissed off. Goes for the touch of the gloves. And, Taleb goes to touch his gloves. And then Eric Silva goes for a punch and connects on Taleb.
Yeah.
Complete.
After Taleb lets
that
his
was a
guard
complete
down.
heel move right there.
Yeah.
And probably, he's got disqualified before. It just shows he has maybe not temper, but maybe a lack of what he's doing when it comes to the rules. And respect to
the rules and his opponent.
So it showed that karma is for real, which I've been coming across a lot lately.
Yeah.
That he gets Taylor catches his leg in the second round, and he corks Silva with a punch right in between the eyes.
It was on the top of his forehead, I
top
believe.
of the forehead, right around the eye section.
Oh, he knocked out cold
face plant. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
we freaked out here.
We were losing it. That was an amazing karma moment.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah. Any other fights that you get stoked on in this card?
Yeah, I got a couple more here. Hopefully you guys aren't getting tired from me talking here. I got Vitor Miranda, Lex Luthor, fighting out of Brazil. 3 KOs, 3 UFC fights. Can't go wrong with that.
No.
This guy,
impressive
he was
KO too.
Impressive, yeah. Well, this KO is nasty. So, Miranda was losing the fight, getting grinded against the cage a lot, actually losing some of the exchanges on the feet. But he found the opening, with the elbows to the head on the corner. Not on the corner, but against the cage. So, he rocks him with the elbows, punches him, and then he finds the range, kicks, kicks Marcelo in the face, and then goes and corks him with like 4 straight punches to the jaw.
Just pinpoint accuracy.
Marcelo is just too tough for his own good. Yeah. But he ends up falling down in the background. Really cool moment, just like Nate Diaz and Gray Maynard style.
Yeah, it's going to be in his highlight reel for sure.
Yeah. The guy is really cool too, when he's talking. He just seems like a really chill.
Yeah, he was taking the questions in English and replying in Portuguese.
Yeah, you can tell he knows his English a little bit at least.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk about these next 2 pretty quickly here. We got PEI's Sago coming back from the Achilles heel injury. First fight back. Showing amazing jiu-jitsu on Salas. He uses his jiu-jitsu to actually get the better position, flip him from the guard, and then just corks him with ground and pound. I believe he could have easily went for a submission, but I think he wanted to have that TKO on his resume. So.
He seems like he's a smart enough fighter that he would have went for it if the opportunity was there. But
just kind of a weird note about him, like he's from Toronto, fighting out of Charlottetown, PEI.
Prince Edward Island, our neighboring province, a tiny island, probably currently dealing with 40 centimeters of snow and a storm we didn't even see.
It's just kind of weird that a guy from a place like Toronto ends up training in just a tiny little town.
Yeah.
Maybe his lady moved there or something.
Oh, maybe.
Or maybe he really likes Anna Green Gables.
Something brought him there. But.
Maybe he just really likes red dirt.
Yeah.
You know what? The island is a beautiful place during the summer.
In the summer.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those places that it is a really nice place to live 2 months out of the year. So, and if you're grinding the entire time, then, might as well be in a gym somewhere rather than shoveling snow. Plus, you could cut all that weight shoveling snow. These poor bastards, man. Shout out to all my friends in PEI. How's it going, Kate?
I'll probably see you in PEI in June.
See you in June.
Take a little trip down there.
A little trip to PEI. Go visit Ann and her friends in the Gables.
Sit on the beach.
Any other fights here? UFC 196? We're kind of getting a little bit sidetracked here with
first
the PEI
fight of
talk.
the night.
Yes.
Japanese Ishihara. Really cool guy, as somebody, you guys don't see me right now, but I got plugs, I got piercings, tattoos or whatever. So this guy, Ishihara, not many fighters have piercings and plugs. This guy comes out, he has plugs and stuff. I don't know. I really appreciate that. It's really cool. But, I wanted him to win either way.
Yeah, we're watching skateboarding and he's like, the first fight's on, man. The fighter's got plugs. We need to watch this.
So, he got the first round. Great movement. Was connecting. But in the second round, 34 seconds into the second round, connects with a sneaky counter on his back foot and then corks him with an uppercut on the ground and just hammer fists and KOs Erosa. Awesome KO to start the night, and it actually was kind of like it kind of foreshadowing how crazy the night was going to come. And also Ishihara, hopefully you're listening, awesome post-fight interview. It was just so funny. I love you, my bitches, is what he said. And this is the same guy that was at the weigh-ins hitting on the weigh-in girls. Just a cool guy.
Yeah, he was checking his reflection in the camera mirror.
He seemed like an interesting guy.
He trains as much as he's in the tanning bed.
He came out like an animal in that second round. He's definitely going to be back. So
definitely a personality to grow in the UFC ranks. And there's probably a reason they had him as the first fight on Fight Pass, and in Las Vegas. He's clearly not an American fighter. Actually, no, I think wasn't he fighting out of American Top Team or something?
Yeah, he trains in the States, I believe.
Yeah,
he's from.
But a relatively unknown fighter, really making the most out of his post fight interview, and a great way to start the night off for sure.
Crazy card. Oh.
Yeah, amazing fight. Amazing fights. Of course, the Fight Pass prelims capped off by Jim Miller versus Diego Sanchez. Went to a decision, but just another quality fight put on Fight Pass, and an amazing fight between those two. Showed a lot of heart from Jim Miller, but Diego Sanchez, of course, taking the win.
You know what? It was actually the first win I've agreed with Diego Sanchez in a long time.
Yeah,
he deserved that decision.
Yeah, I agree.
Jim Miller, don't know if they're going to keep him or not, but...
Yeah, I don't know. He's a name. He's definitely good for Fight Pass. He's a gatekeeper.
He is a gatekeeper at this point. We'll see what happens. I mean, when you're losing 4 out of 5 fights.
Yeah.
Some really brutally, too.
Before we move away from this card, I just want to mention the payouts for the top 2 fights there. So, no title on the line, just a catchweight fight. Conor McGregor guaranteed $1 million. Probably made, several $1 million. Diaz guaranteed $500,000. He didn't get a win bonus. He did get an extra $100,000 for fight of the night and performance of the night. And then Miesha Tate made $92,000 to win a championship. And that, if she lost, it was 46. She had a $46,000 win bonus. She did get an extra $50,000 for performance of the night, and Holly Holm on the other end of that fight made $500,000 to lose her belt. So, not everything's bad for her.
Yeah, those are some interesting numbers. Definitely interested in that Tate money. But she's probably still fighting out a Strikeforce thing.
Yes, yeah.
Like
she was champion though. But...
Oh wait, she didn't she just have a contract negotiation not long ago? I think that was part of the whole title thing.
Believe so.
Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong person, but yeah, definitely interesting stats on there. Plus the Reebok pay. Don't forget about that extra $5,000.
Yeah, yeah. I'm talking strictly fight pay from the UFC here, so
yeah,
we're not talking any sponsorships or anything like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Good to point those stats out. So some real discrepancy there between the champion and the contender.
Yeah.
I guess that's what comes with becoming the champion. I think we'll see the flip happen to Miesha Tate. Maybe she'll make a little bit more here when she defends next.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit nice to see Holly Holm as a champion making $500,000. Basically, Diaz had to beg for that money, and it's just good for equality of fighters to see a woman on par with the winner of the main event as far as guaranteed money is concerned. It's still, I'm sure, as we all know, there's quite a chasm between men and women making money in every profession. It's just one of those things that we still can't get past in this world of ours, but really evident in the world of fighting when you see the payout on some of these prelim cards and see some women making $2,000 to show. It's pretty wild.
I mean, a lot of the prelims, those guys are making, some of them like $10,000 to fight, and you got to pay for your camp.
No, yeah, it's wild.
I mean, training's not going to be cheap.
Invest for success. So guys, if that's all we had to talk about for UFC 196, I want to just quickly transition over to Bellator 151, live for free on Spike.
Yeah.
We, in the main event, we had Joe Warren versus Darian Caldwell. Caldwell coming into this fight undefeated against Joe Warren, who was coming off of a win, who had previously lost his belt. Speaking of gatekeepers, Darian Caldwell really putting it to Joe Warren. Complete dominance by Caldwell. Just outpunched, out-wrestled. Joe Warren looked outclassed all the way through. There was really not 1 second of Joe Warren winning this fight. Joe Warren, of course, with this loss, potentially becoming that gatekeeper. That's what I was alluding to with this segue. But, Darian Caldwell really impressed, moving to 9-0, scoring that amazing, I guess you could say upset win over Joe Warren, where he is the former champion and all. But the fight, the card itself for Bellator 151 was a little uninspiring. A lot of unanimous decisions. Of course, Bubba Jenkins, who also was pretty excited to watch against Goiti Yamochi. Yamochi actually looked really good in this fight, but Jenkins just wrestled him, and it was kind of boring to watch. I was a little bit upset with it, but, Dems to breaks. Do you guys have anything you guys want to add to this Bellator 151 card?
Well, the most impressive thing about the night was Joe Warren's an incredible wrestler. He's an Olympic quality wrestler, and Caldwell just flipped him upside down on his head.
Yeah.
Looked like ease. The guy's huge for his weight class.
Yeah.
Huge. And he actually wrestled at 149.
Great personality, too. I really liked his walkout and his pre-fight interview and everything.
Somebody to look out to. Bellator has another big star there. So.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, especially with slams like that.
Yeah, and then finishes too. And he said he was going to finish in the first.
Yeah.
Against somebody that's battle-tested and a pretty good fighter.
The baddest man on the planet.
Baddest man on the planet. But, went out there and finished in the first, so pretty impressive, and I'll be watching his next fight for sure.
Yeah, definitely, and no love lost on Joe Warren, although I do worry if he strings together like a win-loss for a little bit, it's not going to be good for his career. But we will see how that goes. Guys, if you guys have nothing else to talk about Bellator 151, are you guys ready to move on to our segments?
We are.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to our first segment. The half-cut uppercut. Who impressed you the most? Who was the dark horse of this weekend's fights? Nick, you start us off.
I gave my half cut this week to Miesha Tate.
Nice.
I thought she was losing the fight other than that second round, and she pulled off the finish late in the fifth round.
Yeah.
Won that belt.
Gritty
well,
fighter.
she never gives up.
Nope.
And yeah,
And
Holly Holm let her guard down. Miesha Tate did what she had to do.
Beautiful. Yeah, and gorgeous.
I had to put that in there.
Yeah. Not wrong. Yeah, no, that's a good half-cut uppercut. She definitely impressed. Trevor, who do you have?
I've got, which I thought, it's quite obvious, Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
11 days, training for a triathlon, goes in there against probably the poster boy for UFC right now, takes his hardest shots, comes back, connects relentlessly for a good 30 seconds on him, and then chokes him out and taps him out with a bloody face while actually taunting, and he got one of those Stockton slaps in.
Yeah, man.
So-
Diaz screaming with his bloody face after he won was awesome.
Well, even when he first connected on the right-left combo, he goes, what? Like, right away. Like,
gets
perfect.
the shruggy in there.
Yeah. So that's my half-cup uppercut. And I actually had a second one just in case somebody had picked Nate. But
Who is it?
Nordine Talib. Yeah, he was really great on the feet. Really, really cool, calculated. I look forward to his next fight. Ain't fighting out of Canada, so got to rep him a little bit, right?
Always got to get behind them. Yeah, okay. Well, those are two very good half-cut uppercuts. Mine's not so obvious. I chose Sayer Bahadizada.
Yeah.
Over 800-day layoff. 2 years and 2 months of between his last fight and his current fight. He really opened up in that post-fight interview, talking about how his nephews had died, his friends that had died. He didn't say if they had died in Afghanistan. I'm making that assumption. Really pulled at my heartstrings just knowing that this guy is able to be a world-class fighter for the best MMA promotion in the world, having to deal with all of those things moving into this fight, and the weight that must have been on him, knowing he hadn't fought in over 800 days, dealing with all of these
surgeries.
Surgeries to begin with, but then and more lately the emergencies, the family emergencies, but keeping his eye on the ball and walking away with that win, didn't even leave it up to the judges. Of course, he wasn't very impressed with his performance, but I think we're going to see more out of him. Hopefully he can keep it on the straight and narrow and come back and impress us again. That's my half-cut uppercut.
I could see him fighting maybe 3 times this year.
Yeah,
I bet he has the drive, especially with that win.
Yeah.
And being out for so long.
Yeah, and I mean, Thatch is no slump. Like, it was a really tough opponent, and he had to bring that fight to the ground, and he brought the fight to his wheelhouse, and made Thatch pay. Thatch really, like you say, not sure where he's going to go from here, but just really cool to see Bahadizada rise to the top, as it were.
Awesome. Yeah. It's a good pick too. I'm a huge fan of his, so he was kind of in the back of my head if I should put him or not.
I gotcha.
Definitely that backstory is touching. It really is.
Yeah. Sorry.
Before he came to UFC, I remember reading an interview about how his friends were always dying, and he'd be going outside and you'd see body parts basically on the ground. So yeah, that guy's definitely battle tested. Yeah, not a lot of things could bother him in the cage that he hasn't seen in real life.
Yeah, for sure. All right, on that lovely note, let's transfer over to our second segment. full bladder splatter. All right, full bladder splatter. Who pissed the bed? Who upset the worst this weekend? Trevor, you start us off.
Oh, this one was an easy one for me. Eric Silva. Man, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Cheap shot to getting KO'd, face plant in the second, and then trying to get up and then shaking and like almost falling over.
Yeah.
Man, you've been disqualified before in UFC and have lost your big fights and keep getting called a prospect even though, you know, he's over 30. But he does look younger, I guess. But so disgusted by that performance. Yeah, no, I don't know where he goes from here. That was not cool what he did in the first. It was
real
really
dick move.
Inappropriate.
I'm just going to jump in too because my full bladder splatter is Eric Silva as well. We don't share our picks actually before the fight, or before the podcast, so this is all just off the cuff. I picked Eric Silva as well. I feel like his poor sportsmanship really lost me as a super fan. I really liked Eric Silva, and I liked his unorthodox style. I liked his approach to, you never really know what's coming, and there's some really exciting fights that he's been a part of, but that whole, it's one thing to be a poor sportsman, put your hand out and reassure the person it's okay and then punch them, but then after the fight, trying to play it off like it was all just part of the game. What if he would have knocked him out on that sucker punch, and won the fight? That's no way to win a fight. Man, I was pissed when that happened, and I think, I'll probably tune into an Eric Silva fight again, but I'm not happy about it. That guy has lost me as a fan.
It was a big what the
Eric
fuck.
Silva fight again.
It was a big what the fuck
You're not
when
just
that
gonna
happened.
skip one
All
fight.
of us.
True. Yeah, that's true. I'm going to be outside, guys. Eric Silva's fighting, and I have made my protest. I've drawn my line in the sand, and I'm over here without the television. Who's your full bladder splatter for this past weekend? Bellator 151, UFC 196. Nick.
My full bladder splatter on the other end of my half cut uppercut is Holly Holm. I guess basically the opposite of what I said before. Holly was winning the fight other than the second round, and she let her guard down with a couple minutes left in the fight. And even after the fight, she said, she knew she was winning. She kind of got too confident and stopped thinking about how Misha Tate is dangerous right until the end.
Yeah.
Very true.
And she paid for it.
Got too comfortable.
I came really close to giving the full bladder splatter to Conor McGregor, but I don't think this loss really does too much to Conor, so I gave him a pass on that one.
Yeah, really looking forward to the water cooler conversation at work tomorrow with some of the casual fans and one of my diehard friends at work to hear their insight as to what happens to Conor McGregor and their newest favorite fighter, Nate Diaz.
Well,
the best fighter in the world.
It'd be interesting to see if
Nate Diaz, sorry, yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if those casual fans would actually get on the bandwagon of Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
They got a lot of fights to watch, if so.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of fights in the UFC.
Back catalog.
A lot. And Ultimate Fighter 5 when he was on.
That's true. Yep. Just tune in on Fight Pass. They're not telling us to say this. They're not paying us, that's for sure.
Come on, Fight Pass.
Yeah, look it up, come on.
If they were paying us, it might be video.
Yeah, really, yeah. So, guys, speaking of video and looking forward into the future of the podcast, let's talk about the upcoming event, UFC Fight Night 85, Mir versus Hunt. We got Mark Hunt with the binary record of 1-1 and 1-0 and 1. And Frank Mir, 18-10. Looking at the last couple fights from Mark Hunt, we go in an anti-chronological order. Win, loss, win, draw, loss, win. Of course, that draw coming in Australia against Bigfoot, and then of course the win on the immediate rematch that draw was an amazing fight. The win not so much. Frank Mir 2 wins in his last 7 fights. So we've got Mark Hunt with 3 wins in his last 7, and Frank Mir with 2 wins in his last 7. Somehow headlining a card. We've got the Battle of Sluggers. This is any man's fight. Predictions. Mark Hunt.
I got Mark Hunt, first round KO. He's going to connect on that chin that's been tested way too long. If Frank fights like he did last time against Arlovsky, he's not going to be able to survive against Hunt. The thing with Hunt, his record might not seem that great, but the guy's fought literally the best heavyweights in the world his entire career.
Absolutely.
His entire career. Back in Pride, back now in the UFC. The guy's just been fighting animals. I got him by first or second round KO. I like Mir too, also, for sure. But
Mir's a rejuvenated fighter. That last fight was not good, but
I just don't see his chin holding up to Hunt's power.
What about you, Nick? What's your prediction for the main event?
I've got Hunt by KO as well in that one.
Cool.
Yeah.
Who's a big Frank Mir fan?
I am a Frank Mir fan, but I got Hunt by KO. Sorry, Frank, you're not taking home another arm.
I've got Frank Mir by submission, third round. That's just my 2 cents. I think it's going to be a boxing match. It's going to go deeper than we want it to. I think it's going to be kind of slow. And then, of course, I think Frank Mir is going to go for the takedown and get that submission.
He can definitely get the submission, that's for sure.
I mean, Mark Hunt's been submitted before, so it's not outside of the realm of possibilities. Of course, looking down the card, we've got in the co-main event Hector Lombard, fresh off of being busted for steroids at 34-4-1, fighting Neil Magny, who has looked amazing of late, 17-4, his record going into this bout. Neil Magny, a real lanky, tall fighter, really coming into his stride as a UFC fighter, fighting a lot last year. He's got 2 wins in a row over Kelvin Gastelum and Eric Silva, who we gave the full bladder splatter to earlier. Of course, he had a loss before that, but a lot of wins before that.
The only loss is Damian Maia, which is not a bad thing at all. Damian Maia is a beast.
Yeah, so. I mean, Damian's at the top of the pile as well with his last win over Gunnar as well. So we're looking at a very stacked division, and if Neil Magny can pull out the win against Hector Lombard, I think we're going to see Neil Magny really get up into that contender conversation, top 5, top 6. Maybe rematch Damian Maia. Given the situation at the top, it's going to be pretty tough. Predictions for that fight. Nick, who do you have?
I never really thought about this one.
Good prediction.
I got mine.
Trevor, who do you got?
I got Hector Lombard by either second round TKO or decision with his grinding Olympic caliber wrestling that he brings straight from Cuba. He, on steroids, if not on steroids, like he's been one of my favorites, top 10 favorites at least since his Bellator days. And he fought in Pride back in the day too. It was really good then too.
I've got Neil Magny by jumping heel hook, first round.
Pretty specific.
Sorry, flying heel
Gotta
hook.
get rid of those tree trunk legs with Hector Lombard.
Could you imagine though?
Flying
put
go-go
$3.85 on that and Unibet.
Flying go-go plata slam.
Yeah,
KO and
exactly.
submission.
Yeah. Did you think of anything yet, Nick? Do you have a prediction, or are you just gonna pass?
I'm gonna pass on this one.
All right. Well, we're not gonna give predictions for the rest of the card, but looking down the rest of the card, quite a few amazing fights. Of course, you got Ross Pearson against Abel Trujillo. That is going to be an amazing striking match. Hopefully.
Oh shit! Steve Boss is still fighting.
I know. Yeah, Steve Bosse. I was surprised to see him back on the card. I was pretty sure he had retired after that amazing knockout he suffered in his last outing.
Oh, the Silva, yeah.
Yeah, of course, James Tahuna has the power to knock him back out. Yeah, it's a really weird fight. I mean, also on the card, Beck Rollins hasn't really been able to live up to her potential, but clearly they have some stock invested in her, putting her on the main card. And then Alain Joban.
Well, Joban's back, yeah.
Yeah, he's back. And we got Jake Matthews all the way from Australia fighting Johnny Case. It's going to be pretty interesting. Richard Walsh, he's had a few interesting fights lately, coming off a few knockouts, I believe. And, Chad Laprise, Justin Scoggins, I know you were stoked on him.
Yeah, he's fighting again.
Fighting, man.
Wow.
Ben Young.
Ben Young's awesome.
Yeah, dude, that's going to be a great fight.
Scoggins just fought like 3 weeks ago. This is crazy.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Holy
that's
crap.
true. Yeah,
Ben,
we were stoked on Scoggins.
Ben's awesome. Ben is known on the YouTube world for his KO of the face tattooed champion in Australia.
Oh yeah, the guy who talks shit. Yeah, that's true.
And Ben's looked great in both his UFC fights. which is weird. He's only fought in, like, I think it was the start of the prelims both times.
Yeah.
And he's won by KO both times.
Yeah, and it looks like he's on the prelims again, so pretty interesting placement. Of course, opening up the night, we've got Leslie Smith against Rin Nakai. I believe both of those women suffering losses to the former champ Holly Holm in their careers, so a common opponent there to review tape on since they went the distance, both of these fights. Yeah, really interested to see, if Leslie Smith can bring her wins
Records
versus
up, yeah.
her record into a better light, currently sitting at 7-6-1. Just a really interesting division. When you look at 16-1-1 on Rin Nakal, only loss coming to the former champion, probably a setup fight for her so she can look good and move forward because they need some more contenders in that division. Actually, it's a pretty stacked division. Who am I kidding? But it would be good to see some more fresh faces.
It's a pretty stacked division, but they've all fought each other.
Well, that's the problem. Yeah, they need some fresh matchups. It's definitely a good time to be a UFC fan and a women's MMA fan in general. Any other fights you guys are stoked on?
Oh, on that card, especially the Ross Pearson Abu Troller. That's
Abel Trujillo, yeah. I mean, Ross Pearson really impressed me, even though it went to a decision. And when I was in Boston, the guy can really slug him. When you see that in person, just the weight that comes with every punch he throws. Whew.
Yeah, he's got such awesome, like, traditional boxing technique almost.
Yeah, kind of terrible tattoos, but
yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of part of the game.
Our conversation always devolves to the terribleness of the tattoos. Well, I'll tell you what's not terrible, fellas. This beer I've been drinking. Have you guys enjoyed your beers throughout this podcast?
I certainly have.
Yes, I see you have finished your Collective Arts IPA and you have moved on to your Brasserie Dunham Saison de Pinacle beer.
I have, and it's treating me well.
Yeah, really interesting artwork on this beer. If you get the chance to find it, it's a Saison de Pinacle Brasserie Dunham, so coming out of Dunham, Quebec. It's got some really trippy mountains with weird faces and really long noses, really a la Adventure Time trip out scenes.
Yeah. I don't know if they're, going towards snowboarders and skiers for this design.
Hopefully there's no acid in this beer.
Yeah, really. You're actually drinking the Four Loko equivalent of a Quebec beer. Well, I have transitioned from my Red Racer IPA to a Hop Yard Pale dry hopped ale from Garrison Brewing Company. Of course, Garrison coming to us from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Really amazing beer, pale ale, worth drinking again. Definitely one of my fallbacks, one of my easy sippers that I keep in my fridge for when I'm looking for a enjoyable pale ale. Trevor, how's that maybe treating you?
Still rocking it. Only
Nice.
a couple sips left, but I love it every time.
Yep.
Maybe. See you next weekend, guys.
Yeah, maybe is going to be a staple
Not
on
maybe.
our...
Will.
Yeah, will. But speaking of next weekend and beer, we have a really special podcast coming to you next week. We are going to be visiting the Fredericton Craft Beer Festival at the Convention Center in Fredericton, where there are over 50 brewers who will be peddling their wares for us to drink. The plan is we are going to go there and we are going to collect our notes as best we can about each beer that we drink, try to get some swag, see about getting some stuff to give away to you, the listeners. Just a quick look down the list of the beer companies that are going to be in attendance. So we have Bar None Brewing, Big Spruce Brewing, we got Boar City Brewing, we've got Breton Brewing, just Collective Arts will be there, all the way from Hamilton, Ontario.
Oh, Collective Arts is on the list. I didn't know that.
Yeah, man. We've got Big Axe all out of Nakawik, New Brunswick, which is...
We can buy some more Collective Arts next week.
Lovely. Yes. Like I was saying, we got Big Axe Brewing out of Nakawik, where Brendan Brewer was born, lives out of. We've got Boxing Rock Brewing out of Shelburne, Nova Scotia. Really excited to drink some of that on tap because I think their Vickers Cross Double IPA might be one of my favorite IPAs. We've got Brasseur de Petit Saut, which I had on the podcast last week for the Le Kedgewick, and Louis Le 17, and I believe there was Sarah Catherine. That was really good. We've got Creemore. Some people might be, some of our mid-Canada listeners might know that. It's based out of Toronto. We've got Good Robot coming from Halifax. Really looking forward to that.
I'm really psyched for that one.
Got Greystone Brewing out of Fredericton, New Brunswick. Greystone, of course, building their new headquarters right on King Street in downtown Fredericton. A lot of hype around that. That's really looking forward to that opening up. Got Muskoka all the way from Ontario. We got Mill Street from Ontario as well. Looking at Flying Boats out of Shediac. Super excited to try that out. Heard a lot of good things. Yeah, Hop City out of Ontario. Looking at Maybe out of Fredericton. Innocent Gun all the way from Scotland. Gonna be a really good time drinking that. You know, I never really thought about that. We should talk to Jake, get some Innocent Gun on this show. He's our friend who actually is the account manager for Innocent Gun here in New Brunswick. Of course, we got Garrison out of Halifax. Goose Island, one of my favorite IPAs of the year. Of course, they have a really good ale as well. Funny to see Moosehead there. Not really sure that's a craft beer. I think that's just that'll keep all
to get themselves in there.
That'll keep all the bros happy on the edge.
Down the road.
Yeah. Of course, we got Pump House Brewery, best known in our circle of friends for their blueberry ale. Really delicious blueberry ale. Great on tap. They add actual blueberries to the beer, and it tastes so fruity. We got Red Rover Craft Cider, which has been on the podcast a few times. Sam Adams coming to us from Maine in the United States. Really popular beer down in the New England states. I really liked some of their specialty beers, like the season beers that they were coming out with, and their IPA is really good as well. We got Trailway out of Fredericton, one of my favorite seasonal IPAs of the year. They had it on tap down at 540 downtown. Just an amazing beer. Unibrew out of Quebec, some people might be familiar with that. We got PEI Brewing Company. Really been enjoying their hopped Cascade ale. That one was really good. We got North Brewing out of Halifax. Of course, local favorite Picaroons making an appearance. Really looking forward to seeing their setup there. They really have a foothold here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and in fact they're opening a new brewery just down the street, less than a kilometer away from me. Really looking forward to being a rock's throw away from that brewery. We got Propeller Brewing and Railcar Brewing. Railcar, heard a lot of good things about them coming out of Florenceville, Bristol. Yeah, Uncle Leo's coming out of Leonsbrook, Nova Scotia. Just an amazing beer there. Uncle Leo's IPA on tap down at 540 in Fredericton on Queen Street. Just, oh man, I am just losing it looking at all these beers. We got Savoie Brewhouse. Those people were amazing hosts when I was up in Charlotte, New Brunswick 2 years ago. Showed up to their restaurant to see about getting my growler filled. The lovely lady behind the counter told me, she said, "I'm sorry we can't fill those, but you can call so-and-so. I have his number here, and he'll come and fill you up one back at the brewery." Lo and behold, it was actually the Mr. Savoie, the owner of the Brasserie, and he and I shot the shit for a couple hours, and I drank way more than a growler's worth. Pretty much watched the sun come up over the come up on the far side of the Baie de Chaleur in Charlot. Just an amazing sight. Saw some herons in the water, those tall-legged birds. So yeah, I mean, those are what you have for what you can look forward to us reviewing. Not really going to give a I would guess you would say advanced review of every beer, but we are going to make a note of our favorites for the various types of beers. I'm really going to tell you about, we're going to bring you the same segments, our half cut, uppercut, and our full bladder splatter, only it's going to pertain to the beers. Yeah, we're going in the afternoon, so what we're going to try to do is going to try to get a live hit with some of the organizers and some of the beer companies there, try to get a little information on them, maybe do a little profile for you guys so you guys can find out where to get the beer if you guys feel so inclined to follow up from our suggestions. Yeah, that's what you can look forward to next week. There is no MMA, well, a few smaller promotions, but we're going to focus next week on the Fredericton Craft Beer Festival and everything, all the goodness it brings. Yeah, guys, my heart's racing, just so excited to try all of those beers, man. And there's just going to be such a variety from each beer, you know?
Yeah.
Something for everybody. Really looking forward to this. And then, of course, after that, we'll fall back onto our similar cadence of our MMA and beer-themed podcasts. But yeah, as I said, the podcast just keeps moving ahead. Episode 10 is currently what we're on. Looking forward to bringing you another 10 episodes. If there's nothing else you guys want to talk about, shall we wrap it up?
Sounds good.
I think we're done.
Episode 10.
Episode 10. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Search MMA Buzz Radio. Tell your friends. Like it. Share it. Let us know how we're doing. We want to hear from you. We're doing it for you and ourselves and the beer. So, but we always like to hear back from you guys. Really looking forward to bringing you that special exclusive next week. Cheers, guys.
Prost.
Episode 10 in the books.
MMA Buzz. Brought to you by The Beach Radio.